So, good morning, everyone. I'm excited today to help host the final Port Gen Advanced Port Gen training in partnership with the Port of Seattle. My name is Tiffany Scroggs, and I'm joined here with Leslie Miller from the Washington Apex Accelerator. And we're going to get right to it. I'm going to start us off by introducing Emily Ho with the Port of Seattle. Emily, good morning. Thanks for being here today.
Morning, Tiffany. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tiffany and Leslie and Apex for helping us put the Advanced Port Gen on. This is our last webinar until our end of year celebration, and this is going to be quite the finale. Really excited about this. We've got some really helpful information coming up for you, specifically on some of the biggest can be some of the biggest obstacles or challenges for learning about how to do construction contracting at the port. Um, we're going to talk about badging. I've got my colleague Lauren Curtis. Really excited to have Lauren talk to you about our badging requirements and how you can get ready for that, what you need to know in order to be successful. As well as my colleague Allison Calvert from the Construction Labor Group to talk about our PLA requirements and what you need to know and how you need to get ready to be compliant with that. So without further ado, I'm really excited for all that. I'm really excited for you all for taking the time to learn about this so that you can be successful with us at Port. And so I'll hand it back over to you, Tiffany, I think. And
Yeah,
actually, I'll pull up the screen.
Yep, go ahead and pull up your slides here. And so what we're not going to do today is dive too far into the very basics of doing business with a government agency like the port. And that training is found in other spots, and we can work with you one-on-one if that's kind of why you're here today. Today's more of an advanced class on some key components of doing business at the port that are somewhat unique to the port and sometimes trip up new contractors that are interested in doing business at the port. So we're excited to dive in. This is training that we've never had before. I've been at this for 15 years, and so I'm excited to learn the content today, and I'm grateful for the port to provide their training and expertise.
Yeah, so first up, we've got Lauren to talk to us about badging requirements at the airport. Lauren, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm excited to be here, and like Emily and Tiffany have kind of stated already, it can be challenging coming into the port if you don't know some of the rules around badging at a big airport. So I'm Lauren Curtis. I'm the Assistant Director of Credentialing and Access here. I report into Wendy Ryder, who is our Director of Security at SeaTac. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Emily. So we wanted to talk a little bit today about the badging as a whole. So any airport in our nation requires anybody that's working inside what we call the sterile and secure areas of the airport. TSA requires those folks to go through a badging process, and we're regulated by the Transportation of Security Information to do that. So what the rules and the regulation are is any company with a consistent business need to enter those areas need to go through our process. And we have here at SeaTac over 800 companies and 27,000 badge holders that we badge at my center, which is called the Employee Service Center. Next slide, please. So who needs a badge? We kind of just talked about that. That's employees, contractors, consultants, anybody working inside these areas. And the sterile area is sort of where passengers, after they go through the security checkpoints, are waiting to depart on flight. So we've got a lot of people that are working at our concessions, restaurants, shops, folks doing construction, especially at SeaTac. We obviously have a lot of construction and capital projects going on. So anybody that's required to be in that area or the area outside of that, which we call the SITA, and that that area is where essentially airplanes are. It's the perimeter fence of the airport. It includes areas like our bagwell, our ramp and our aircraft runways. So anybody, especially within that area, needs to be vetted, badged, and trained on how to be out there. Next slide. One of the things that we thought it was important for everybody to know is there is a cost associated with badging. So coming in and establishing yourself as a company is kind of the first step. We operate on a cost recovery model. So just to establish yourself as a company, we charge $200. Each badge, a new and we renew on a 2-year cycle, is $164, and that's invoiced directly to the company. We charge sort of a hefty unreturned badge fee because we are regulated by the federal government. If we issue a badge and we don't get those badges back to my office, the TSA can impose civil penalties on us and force us to rebadge the entire population, which again is 27,000, and that would be at the cost of our tenants and our airlines. So that's why that fee is so high. And again, for the lost badge fees, if an employee loses their badge, we really train on, safeguarding that badge. And so if they lose it, it's a $250 fee for the actual employee. And then the second offense is $500. And I think Emily, and you can feel free to chime in here, but she wanted to make sure that these things were considered when you bid. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think as you're bidding, this is where taking into account badging and the dollars associated with it is really important. We don't want you to be losing money when you're working on the port because you didn't include these costs, which can add up into your proposal.
yeah. Next slide. So there's a lot that goes into this. I'm just going to kind of cover it at a super high level. When you establish yourself as a new company, the whole process from A to Z can take up to 2 weeks. And if we tell anybody coming in, don't wait. If you need to do business and start doing business at the Port of Seattle and you need your employees' boots on the ground, you're going to want to start that process several weeks prior to that start date. So the company establishment can take up to 2 weeks. The first step is being sponsored by an airline attendant or us at the Port of Seattle. And we've linked in, which you'll get this deck, we've linked in these agreements and these websites so that you can go and check these out yourself. But it really starts with an email to my office. I have a team that responds within a couple of days. And the first step is to kind of give you a whole bunch of information, set you up with an appointment, let you know that your company needs these 2 TSA authorized representatives that have a lot of roles and responsibilities surrounding badging your employees at your company. It's very much an administrative role. We oftentimes get a lot of people that see that word authorized signer and think, oh, my manager should be handling that. But really, this is something that should go down to somebody that is going to be entering people's information into a system and just kind of following these mandated regulations. So the first appointment, both of these authorized signers need to be present at my office. We kind of get you going. We fingerprint you and put those 2 people through the badging process first. And then once those folks get the badges, they're actually trained. We give them access to what we call our authorized signer portal. And that's an electronic system in which you can start going in and entering your employees' information into our system to start the badging process. Next slide, Emily. So this is a big one. A lot of times people go, well, how long is it going to take? Why, you said it would be about 3 to 5 days for my team. Why is it taking so long? The average badge process, once you start enrolling your employees and they make an appointment in our office, is 3 to 5 days. So again, first step is your authorized signer would submit these electronic applications for your employees. They make their initial appointment to be processed and fingerprinted by my office. That should not take any longer than 30 minutes once they're here. The actual face-to-face time is probably less than 10 minutes for the employee to go through that. We do submit regulated background checks, which is probably the lengthiest part of this. We submit an FBI criminal history records check, and that just covers any disqualifying crime. So TSA says you will not be able to obtain a badge if you have a certain crime on your record. And so we are checking for those things. We do a TSA security threat assessment. That's a super top secret thing that TSA runs on all employees, and that can take some time. And then if your employee is working in our international arrivals facility, which is operated by Customs and Border Protection, there is a third set of background check that has to be done, that's CBP required. Once all of this is done, typically within that 3 to 5 days, the employee is notified and they can return for that second trip to my office to take the regulated training and pick up the badge. When I say some cases can take up to 2 weeks, generally speaking, I like to inform everybody that if there are foreign-born employees that work for your company, that's what takes TSA at our headquarters level a little bit longer to vet those background checks. So my office watches it very carefully. It's about 10% of the badge population that we run into issues where it's taking a little bit longer, and we make sure to kind of push those through. And so in some cases, it can be a little bit longer. Next slide. Training. So I talked a little bit about training. After you clear, you can come in. There are 3 different types of training that you can take depending on what badge you need. So if you're just working in our sterile area, the training is about 45 minutes. And that again is, it's a green badge, and it's movement just within that area where passengers can reside on the post security side. If you're working in our SITA, which is our security information display area, that training is 60 minutes. That again gives you access to the ramp, the bagwells, and that's most of the construction and consultants will need a SITA badge. So if you need to drive out there on our air operations area, that's going to be about 120 minutes. It's a second training associated with the SITA. And then very rarely will you need AMA, and that's the ability to move out on taxiways and runways, small percentage of our population. But in total, I like to tell everybody that if that's the case, it's about 200 minutes of training prior to getting that badge.
Thanks, Lauren. This is similar to the costs, I think, for folks who are interested in working at the port and interested in bidding, being able to take these this time in consideration of your staff you're going to have to pay them for this, which is a part of their job. So again, just this is really important information, similar to costs, to be including it as you're thinking about bidding and including it into your proposal.
I just wanted to touch on the custom seal process. Again, if you've got employees that are working in the international arrivals facility, our Customs and Border Protection team requires a complete separate application to receive what's called a custom seal on your badge. It's a designation that basically shows our customs team that you've been vetted through their processes. And so that's a separate application, a separate letter of intent. It's delivered directly from the authorized signer into our system. And then our Customs and Border Protection we partner with here at CTAC, they have access to our systems and are able to run those background checks and let our office know, yep, Tiffany's good. She gets a seal on her badge. Go ahead and print it. So that process is all outlined in that link below. Next slide. This is just kind of a little screenshot of our website. And again, this is a clickable link at the top, but it covers everything from A to Z. So we try to make it as easy as possible for people. If you're setting up a new company, you can click into that and it will give you the step-by-step instructions. If you're curious about the new badge process, you can go to that interactive map. We've got things on there like how to deactivate a badge, how to renew a badge, and then of course our custom seal process. So this is just a good resource for anybody that's new coming in. Again, just kind of an image and a link to what that new badge process looks like. These are all kind of clickable. You can go in that step one and click on it, because it is confusing to people, especially if you don't do it. You know, I mentioned we have 800 companies, probably 750 of those are under 50 employees. And so if you're not doing this over and over again, it is hard to remember all of the things. So we try to make it as easy as possible for you. And that's why we've kind of linked this interactive map for you. Next slide. This is kind of the end of my presentation, but Emily and I thought it'd be a good idea to just provide you with these, you know, additional resources. So again, that link at the top is to my website and all of the good information in there regarding badging. The second one is we work closely with Airport Jobs, and they do a whole myriad of things for people coming into the port. But one of the things that they do for us that we've partnered with is they help with employees who struggle with English as a second language. And so they work with them to kind of prep them for these CITA classes and our sterile training classes. Sometimes the terms that we use in security that are TSA terms aren't familiar or even translatable into other languages, as silly as that sounds. But because they're regulated in things like piggybacking, which means if you go through a door, don't have somebody follow you through that door, they have to badge in themselves. They don't know what that means. So we've partnered with this group to kind of help them understand what it's like to go through the process and to just do a quick crash course on some of these things that are in our programs. This is our authorized signer handbook. So we talked about every company needs 2 of them. We've created this tool for our authorized signers so that they can kind of have a step-by-step guide to enrolling, renewing, deactivating badges, and just an overall, hey, here's your responsibilities. This 4th bullet is a list of accepted identification documents. And again, probably the biggest trip up that employees have coming into our office is, oh shoot, my passport's expired, or I didn't bring the right birth certificate, or I needed this and I don't, or it's not valid anymore. We have a TSA regulated list of acceptable documents, and I've linked it here and then kind of just did a quick snapshot below so that you know kind of what you need, one from column 1 and 2 and one from the 3rd column. And then our airport tariffs, rules and regulations at the Port of Seattle. Again, that, you know, kind of talks about all of the things. If you have a security violation, there's why we have the cost of badging in there. All the things security are linked in that as just an additional resource for you. And I guess the last thing I would touch on is there's 17 of us in the Credential Center. I've got 11 credential specialists, and each of those 11 people are assigned to a company. So you have resources in the center. So if your company, you know, begins with the letter A, you're going to have somebody that you know that you can reach out to in my office that can answer questions about this process. So if you go to the next slide, these are, I think, are just the acceptable documents. So I know you're going to send this deck out and you folks have it. And that's the end of my presentation if there are no questions.
Thanks, Lauren.
You bet.
I did want to point out that when talking with you, that second bullet, that airport badge prep classes, I mean, I learned that it was accessible to contractors, which like the language on the website wasn't very clear. And that's so exciting that, like you said, folks who English isn't their first language, they actually get support in this way to be able to understand the badge training and be able to actually be successful there is really cool. And that is something that the port helps provide. So just wanted to highlight that.